All right, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the delay. We had a few streaming difficulties. Welcome to the show. My name is Paul Harrell, and be sure to like, share, or subscribe to this video. Do all the things, whether you're on Rumble, whether you're on X, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. We would very much appreciate it. We got a great show for you. President Donald Trump in Davos at the World Economic Forum. You know, it's kind of like a conference for James Bond villains that want to, do things like blot out the sun, forcibly make people take an experimental vaccine, and a lot of other things. Literally, it's like a conference for James Bond villains, real-life James Bond villains. President Trump was there. He said a lot of things, made fun of windmills and, this whole green energy situation. A lot of people are thinking that this purchase of Greenland that, according to reports, he has secured should be called the Green New Deal, just to troll the left. Call it the Green New Deal when he buys Greenland. But he also talked about the 2020 election theft and said that people are going to be prosecuted for this. He intuited that in a press conference yesterday and then doubled down in Davos. We're going to talk about that, as well as Senator Chuck Grassley saying that he's against the SAVE Act, against securing American elections. And so now I'm of this, I want to respect my elders. I want to respect the generation that came before me. But this is one of those things where I'm really struggling not to just labor this whole thing like a boomer inability to have an imagination. We talked about that a little bit yesterday on the show. Anyway, we got a great show for you. We have Eric Haynes with us. Rob's not with us, but Eric Haynes is with us. It starts now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. What do you think about that joke? I saw it was a comedian on TikTok that was like, they need to call the Greenland purchase the Green New Deal. Just to be funny.
I love it. That's hilarious.
I think it's good.
It's epic trolling, too.
Yeah.
Good for them.
We'll see if he does that. But the whole windmill thing was really good. So, this whole thing is kind of like the reason I want to...
Good to be part of the conversation today, by the way.
But the reason that I want to cover this, the reason I want to cover what Trump said, because, obviously there's legitimate people on the right that are like, okay, this is just more talk, and we're still waiting on, a lot of accountability that we haven't seen. So there is that, legitimately reason to be disappointed. But I just want to continue to report on what Trump is saying and chronicle it, because I feel like the more times he says something like this, the more times that they're going to have to do something, right? They're going to have to hold these people accountable in some way, shape, or fashion. If the president of the United States, the guy who's supposed to be the commander-in-chief, the guy who's, if he's saying these things and then they don't happen, he's got to know at some point that is going to affect his legacy, right? Where we get great social media posts, we get great trolling, right? But do we actually get results? And I know we can talk about how it could be a lot worse than it is now. I know that's kind of where your perspective is, Eric, but that's kind of why I wanted to cover this. Trump now saying that Maduro, yesterday, Donald Trump said that Maduro is in custody, right? We went into Venezuela. By the way, did you see... Before we get to that, we didn't cover this. This fell through the cracks. Did you see the Cuban soldiers that were killed came home in shoeboxes?
Yeah.
After that raid?
I did.
And I'm just like, what?
This is what was left of them?
Yes.
Yeah.
What kind of weapons did we use?
Yeah. It's straight out of Marvel Endgame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking more like,
or Infinity War, whatever. Yeah, whatever Marvel analogy you want to use. I
was just
Star
thinking
Wars.
It was like, bionic, maybe like exoskeletons or whatever, suits or something, maybe akin to Iron Man. But then you hear the testimony of that they were they were puking up blood for some sort of weapon that was used, and then the Cuban soldiers that were there that were killed in the operation. They came home and just I don't know what were in those shoe boxes. Were it just puddles of goo?
There's obviously flash grenades, and then there's super soldier flash grenades apparently now that were used over there. It's pretty wild.
I don't know, man. That was wild. But anyway, so yesterday...
No, hey, I want to say something about this real quick. So I will readily admit that my version of the rigged election of 2020 doesn't necessarily I had not gone down the road, and we've talked about this a lot as far as election integrity and software. I've learned a lot listening to you and some of the other guests about software manipulation, programming, coding, all of those things. My brother's a coder down in Little Rock. We've had some conversations about some things and how easy those things are to manipulate, zeros and ones, to create the outcome that you want. My point about the rigged election of 2020 was that it was about,
the mail-in ballots or
mail-in ballots, mass media news coverage, and what they didn't, the Hunter Biden laptop, and keeping everything else off of Facebook and other social media.
Okay, so the censorship and
censorship.
Yeah.
Thank you. For some reason, I'm sitting there thinking of the word censorship, and it's not coming to my mind. But anyway, censorship and that type of manipulation, rigging the 2020 election, such negative media, and such a mess as it relates to information and news coming out before that election. That was what I looked at as far as.
That's interesting that you say that, because that one is much easier to prove. Meaning, it is much easier to prove, and so it's still relevant in terms of just because we may have software, and voting machines that in some foreign countries, software rigging the election, it doesn't mean that the government still didn't rig it in different ways.
Yeah, it alone makes me go on the side of, man, that election was definitely rigged against President Trump.
Well,
but this stuff, what you're talking about and what I think they're finding out and uncovering, that is, hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah.
This is like total silver bullet type stuff.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
I'll just add on the lower hanging fruit scenario of the rigging election. You had Mark Zuckerberg confessing in a letter to Congress that the federal government pressured him to censor information about the Hunter Biden laptop.
Totally.
And then Zuckerberg, what did Zuckerberg do? He went and met with Trump shortly after that, basically like, don't throw me in jail, please. I won't do it again.
Yeah.
But so yesterday in a press conference, President Donald Trump says that Maduro is in custody. His lawyers have learned some things about Venezuelan voting software and possible 2020 election tampering. Now, this was yesterday, okay? So that's the context here, because he doubled down earlier in Davos today, but this was yesterday. Watch.
You've been hearing from allies.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Kara Castanova from Lindell TV. And you spoke earlier about the 2020 election. Now that Maduro is in U.S. custody and he was criminally charged, has any more information emerged that you could share with us regarding Venezuelan election software and Venezuelan ties to tampering with the 2020 election? And would you consider speaking to Maduro personally in prison in New York to get some answers on Venezuela's involvement with the 2020 election?
No, I don't think I would be doing that. I think my lawyers would be very unhappy if I did. Yeah, they've learned some things. Please.
What happens to the tariff threat to Greenland if the Supreme Court comes out and...
All right, so...
It was a great question by that Lindell TV.
Great question.
You know who Lindell TV is, right?
Mike Lindell?
Her colleague was the one who asked the question to Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, Allison Steinberg.
There
so
you go.
I was a guest on Allison Steinberg's show when she had a show on OWN.
Cool.
One American News. I was a guest, I don't know, maybe a handful of times, no more than 10, but maybe more than 5. I can't remember. This was last year a lot, or maybe it was the year before. I'm not really sure when she, because I know OWN went in a different direction, and then she landed at Lindell TV.
Cool.
But yeah, Allison Steinberg's great, and so is Casanova. She's great too, and so is the Gateway Pundit, because I believe she's written for the Gateway Pundit before she was at Lindell TV. So it's a great question, and he said, he did say that his lawyers have learned some things.
Yeah.
Okay, so that maybe people are just taking a snippet. Okay, that's nothing. Maybe people are going to dismiss that. But then he goes to Davos.
Yeah.
And he says this.
Miles
This
away,
is today, right?
separated
Yeah.
by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election. Can't have rigged elections. You need strong borders, strong elections, and ideally a good press. I always say it. Strong borders, strong elections, free, fair elections, and a fair media. The media is terrible. It's very crooked. It's very biased, terrible. But someday it'll straighten out because it's losing all credibility. Think of it, when I win in a landslide, a giant landslide, won all 7 swing states, won the popular vote, won everything, and I only get negative press. That means that it has no credibility. And if they're going to get credibility, they're going to have to be fair. So you need a fair press. But you also need those other elements. And I inherited a terrible, terrible situation. If you look, the border was open, the inflation was raging, everything was bad with the United States when I came into office. But I also inherited a mess with Ukraine and Russia, something that would have never happened. And I know Putin very well. He and I would discuss Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but he wasn't going to do anything. I said, Vladimir, you're not doing it. He would never have done it. It was terrible what happened. I could see it happening, too. After I left, I could see it happening. Biden had given Ukraine and
Vladimir, you're not doing it.
So I was just making sure there wasn't any there.
Great.
But so people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. It's probably breaking news, but it should be. It was a rigged election.
Yeah.
So here's the president saying this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So it better happen. That's all I'm saying. Now, he is not making the Maduro connection the way the press in that question from yesterday is making the Maduro connection.
Right.
So it's very possible that people go down for rigging the 2020 election from maybe more of what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
The censorship, the government suppressing the
let's
Hunter
go ahead
Biden
and
laptop.
piggyback on top of censorship.
Mail-in ballots. That mail-in ballot is
COVID insanity.
Go look at the drop boxes and the people running. It's very possible that you only get that aspect of it, and that does not necessarily mean that Emerald Robinson's reporting is wrong, because when it's all said and done, they have Maduro, and unfortunately, governments operate in secrets and keeping secrets, and telling half truths sometimes, and that's unacceptable. But at the same time, that is never going to change this side of heaven. So
I'm a wait and see guy. So the ball is on the tee right now. So we'll see if it gets smacked right down the fairway. We'll see.
But I mean, it really comes to the central question, and this is kind of the thread to pull at is what is the difference between what happened in 2020 and what happened in 2024? You could say, well, it was too big to rig. Okay, that's one aspect of it. But there are people, and I think credible people. One of them is Dr. Andrew Paquette, who I've interviewed now twice. And the first time I interviewed him was in November of 2024. And the question was, how did this happen? And his story that he told in 2024 to me lines up with what now some of these other people are saying, like Emerald Robinson, and that's that there was intelligence that was shared with Mar-a-Lago about how they were going to steal it electronically via Serbia. And that combined with the voter algorithms that were hidden in certain swing states, these ghost voters or these cloned voters. And I'm not an expert on it, but I just think, I don't know, as a journalist, I want to get to the bottom of it. And I hope the administration is fully transparent. And if Maduro knows, which you would assume he does, how this is all really, because the allegation is that they haven't been doing this with just the United States. The allegation is that this has been going on in I don't know, 60, 70 countries since the turn of the 21st century, around 2004-ish, something like that. So anyway, we're going to wait and see.
Sure. But I'm with you now in that they got away with it in 2020. On top of, like I said, piggybacking on top of all the other rigged ways in which the 2020 election fell the way it did, I think they got away with a lot more now, and this information will come out. and that they we were smart enough to keep that from happening again in 2024.
Yeah.
Not to mention Kamala was just a garbage dumpster fire
true.
of a candidate.
Yes. There weren't enough white dudes for Harris.
Yeah. There weren't enough anything for
or whatever
Harris.
they were called.
I mean,
but I will say when Brian Norris was on the show, the Republican candidate for Arkansas Secretary of State,
great guy.
When he said that even in our state of Arkansas, the contracts that we make with these voting machine companies, the software is proprietary, the code is proprietary, and so we as citizens are not allowed to access it and not allowed to see it. And so whether or not there's malicious code in there or not, that basically means that a third party, a private company, is the backbone of our elections, and that doesn't sit well with me at all. So, and it doesn't sit well with the people of Independence County or Searcy County, and I think a lot of people across Arkansas it doesn't sit well with, and that's why we're in the middle of this debate. So, we'll keep watching this. I think again,
good stuff, man.
Arrests got to happen sooner rather than later, but we'll figure it out. So, World Economic Forum. He also talked about Canada. This is a brief clip. I will say this about the World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about the room for a second.
Yeah.
This is like a room full of Dr. Evils and the bad guys from Mission Impossible movies. It's like he's looking out onto all of these folks, and that's who I think. It's like I envision him thinking in his mind, comparing all these folks to basically those types of actors.
Well, and their hatred of Donald Trump in this instance is actually a hatred of us, of the people.
And he just cooks in this type of environment.
Yeah.
I mean, he just absolutely and unapologetically says exactly what needs to be said, what he wants to say, and that's why we love him.
So,
love and hate. I'll just go ahead and say that.
I'll just say this. I don't know if you guys can see the World Economic Forum logo. I don't know if you can. I'm just going to point out that it is not lost on me as I put on my conspiratorial hat where,
here we go.
where symbols, they kind of tell you exactly who they are right out in front of you. But if you'll notice that line that goes through the 3 O's, many people have observed that is a 6 and a 6 and a 6. I'm just letting you know. They tell you right out in front. You ever look at the Taco Bell logo?
The Monster Energy drink cans.
Well, yeah. Hey, allegedly the monster that is the Hebrew letter there.
Mark of the devil.
I'm just saying. Yep. Anyway, here is.
I don't subscribe.
That's fine
to that, but it's okay to talk about.
No, it is okay to talk about. I'm
Obviously.
just saying. I think these people put their symbols right out in front of us in a way of manufacturing consent, just in terms of, hey, well, I mean, you chose this, that's just my opinion. I think that's how evil some of these people are.
Or some 22-year-old intern says, let's make a little weird moon shape.
Yeah.
And then connect them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could just be that. Yeah.
Love it. This is good. This is good banter right here.
Here's President Trump on Canada.
Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Lives.
Is the guy sitting over in the on the chair next to him? Is he like a moderator or something?
I
didn't
have
catch
no
that from
idea.
any clips today of what I saw. I was like, who is that guy? But man,
I have no idea.
yeah.
Anyway,
God
so
bless.
there was that, and then we get to the
Canada.
windmills. Is this the windmill one?
Yes.
Okay, here it is. This is him on Chinese making windmills and selling, and basically just scamming people is essentially. But we're willing participants in this scam.
Windmills all over Europe. There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers. One thing is that the more windmills a country has, the more money that country loses, and the worse that country is doing. China makes almost all of the windmills, and yet I haven't been able to find any wind farms in China. Did you ever think of that? It's a good way of looking at it. They're smart. China's very smart. They make them, they sell them for a fortune. They sell them to the stupid people that buy them, but they don't use them themselves. They put up a couple of big wind farms, but they don't use them. They just put them up to show people what they could look like. They don't spin. They don't do anything. They use a thing called coal mostly. But China goes with the coal. They go with oil and gas. They're starting to look at nuclear.
Stupid people. Now, most of the people in that room are from Europe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying he's Billy Bob Thornton from season 1 of Landman right there in that monologue about windmills and wind farms. I mean, that's immediately what I thought of. I was like, oh, he saw season 1 of Landman, obviously.
It really kind of makes you think, though, like there's this giant oil deposit that they've discovered in Texas. 100 billion barrels or whatever. I read this last week. We're now in control of Venezuela's oil supply, assuming that we're going to continue to be for the foreseeable future. And then you think about in our own state of Arkansas, how many plots of land now that were used to grow rice or soybeans or corn or cotton are now covered in solar panels.
Yeah.
And it's first of all, it's just gross. You look out there and it just feels like I don't know what it feels like. Just some sort of tech. Like we're just going towards some technical slave labor colony. I don't know, high tech. Look at all the solar panels that we have. It's just they're just ugly compared to. I'm sorry, something that's organic and is growing, and I don't know. It just makes me sad how far all of these. I think what it's really about is, the government's handing out money, there's subsidies, there's all this other stuff, but it's just how far our whole country has changed in so many ways just based off of lies or false presuppositions. And it's sad how quickly all of this has happened.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, to me, this is kind of like his moment in his first term where he said, why are we spending money on NATO when you, Germany, are inking these giant energy deals with Russia? You want NATO to protect you from Russia, but then you're making Russia rich. And then, of course, we all saw what happened. And then, of course, the United States or the Intel oligarchy blew up Germany and Russia's pipeline. I mean, that was when Germany was getting weak at their resolve on sanctions against Russia, by the way. Basically, they took the option away from them, which is technically an active war against Germany and Russia. But I feel like this is kind of the moment where they're saying, China is laughing at you. They don't have windmills of their own, or not in any large amount, and yet the rest of Europe and America were buying them, and they don't really work.
The beauty of this administration too, as well, by comparison to the first administration, is that during the first administration and even on the campaign trail when he was debating against other Republicans on the big stage in 2015, is he asked a lot of why questions. Why are we doing this? Why are you guys doing that? Why are we as a country doing this? Why are we investing in that? Why are we fighting this war? Why? He asked a ton of questions in his first administration that now he already knows all the answers to in Trump 2.0, and he's firing off saying, and not only like, I know now why we're doing it and why we did it, and it's stupid, and we're gonna stop. That's what I love, and we're only a year into this administration, and he's got all the cards on the table for everyone as transparently as they can possibly see it to say, I know now why we did all this stuff, and it's stupid.
And you know what? I think that's a great point. The stupidity that doesn't make any sense only makes sense to the people who are making money for doing absolutely nothing.
And my 11-year-old kids can understand that when the president said, and that's stupid, that they can understand, like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know why. And it helps them think critically about not just asking why, but be able to assess and ascertain the fact that I don't even have an answer to that, but it sure seems stupid.
Yeah, and somewhere down the line, like when we're doing these things that make absolutely no sense, the more you look at it, well, it just comes down to some politician or somebody's nephew or some, political Nepo baby somewhere is getting money from these stupid decisions that don't make sense. They're not really making people's lives better. It's just a big grift and a scam. And I think 95% of the time when we're just like, well, why do we do it this way? It doesn't make sense. Would it make sense to do it this way? Well, there's a lot of people that can't create anything for themselves that would lose a lot of money if we stopped doing the current stupid thing. Whatever that stupid thing is.
Yeah.
Is 95% of the time it's about somebody's lining their pockets without having to actually do anything that's worth the value they're being paid.
And he'll be sitting around his cabinet meetings, and he'll look down the table, and he'll be like, so why are we letting China buy up all of our farmland? That's stupid. Like, let's stop it right now. And he'll say things like that in this administration. And again, we're only 1 year in. There's 3 more years left of this addressing stupidity. And, you know, Nick Shirley's video, and he's on in Congress today, or what, I forget what committee he was talking to, but it's just like all those things sprout from, why are we doing this? And let's investigate that and call it what it is. And if it's stupid, let's stop. Mm-hmm. No matter who it ticks off.
Yeah. So here is Howard Lutnick. He's next up. So he gave a speech, I think, yesterday. A guy by the name from the UK named Jim Ferguson says globalism just died in Davos. Howard Lutnick just walked into the Lion's Den, told the World Economic Forum exactly what they didn't want to hear. Globalism has failed. Not whispered, not softened, declared at their own stage. He dismantled the entire WEF doctrine in minutes. Let's take a listen to this, about 2 minutes.
Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Mic drop.
Again with the stupidity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all a giant. It's all a giant money-making scheme for the people at the top. And that's not to mention, like, well, what are they doing with all that money? Well, they're enriching themselves, but people at the top of the World Economic Forum are obsessed with transhumanism. Mm-hmm. They're obsessed with beating death. They have talked Noval Harari, this gay guy. I think he's a gay professor in Israel. He's a big World Economic Forum lieutenant, and he's been on record many times talking about almost lamenting what to do with the human livestock. He doesn't call us livestock, but we might as well be, because they know that the technology is going to ramp up to the point where these wealthy elites are going to be able to use it, meld it with the biology There's even some talk, and I'm serious, you could look this up, of uploading your consciousness into computers and stuff. Like who wants to be the first person to take that leap? And then the computer with your consciousness in it is like, yeah, I'm alive. Trust me, it's real. And it's like, yeah, where's your soul at though, brother? Like, I don't know, man. Anyway, these people are terrified of death is what I'm trying to say. But they seriously, Eric, you can go look this up. Noval Harari, or Yoval or Noval, or however you say his name, he talks about how one of the solutions for the humans that don't have any jobs left, because everything's going to be automated, is to give us video games and drugs. Literally says this, that's the only thing that they've come up with, is to give us like virtual reality, Matrix-style, video games or immersion technology and drugs to pacify us. And I'm dead serious. That ideology is we can talk about all the stupid stuff that's patented, like the green energy stuff, but that's why I say James Bond villain. It's a lot darker than that. It's a lot darker than just that. It's anti-human. It's an anti-human agenda.
Well, and not to make light of this situation right then, but I'm just thinking of every Dr. Evil in that audience was sitting there like this thinking, well, Mr. Bigglesworth, I guess we better hop on our rocket ship for 3 years.
Mr.
And
Bigglesworth.
maybe come back in 3 years, Mr. Bigglesworth.
Yeah.
It's like,
everyone in that audience listens to that, and they can feel their wallet getting lighter.
Yeah, if people will just pay attention to the objective common sense of that. But
It's pretty interesting. And I know there's probably a lot more clips that we could play. We're going to reset here. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk. When we come back here in a minute and 20 seconds, we're going to talk about the SAVE Act, how the Senate, the Republicans should end the filibuster. But unfortunately, Senator Chuck Grassley came out and said he's against the SAVE Act because he doesn't think the federal government should be regulating state elections. Do you agree with that in light of everything that we've learned now about voter fraud on this program over the last month? We'll be back here in just a moment.
I'm Brian Norris, retired Army First Sergeant, husband to Kelly, father of 3 amazing girls, and a lifelong Arkansan who puts faith, family, and fair elections first. When Independence County demanded real election transparency, I led the charge, petitioning voters and winning at the Arkansas Supreme Court. Now, Little Rock bureaucrats are punishing counties like Searcy for putting voters first. That's not real conservatism. It's big government overreach in disguise. That's why Trump allies like General Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, Justice Michael Gableman, Colonel Conrad Reynolds, Senator Wendy Rogers, and Senator Mark Fincham back me. Together, we'll secure Arkansas's elections and inspire the nation. As Secretary of State, I'll implement President Trump's executive order, verify citizenship, replace hackable voting computers, and build trust with verifiable paper ballots. I'll cut red tape for businesses, harness our natural gas and lithium boom, and attract tech jobs to grow Arkansas strong. This is our fight, our future. Join us.
Paid for by Norris for Arkansas.
All right, welcome back. So over the last 24 hours, we discovered a little bit of a disappointing news story, I say the least. Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, many of you know him. He's the chairman, I believe, of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He has, over the last 6 months or so, the president has scrutinized him for supporting this blue slip policy that is not mandatory. It's just a formality, or it's just a rule that's allowing Democrats to prevent Donald Trump from getting the justices he wants and bringing them up for a vote before the full Senate. That same guy, Senator Chuck Grassley, unfortunately came out in a letter and says that he will not support the SAVE Act, despite the fact that the U.S. Constitution clearly states that Congress has authority to do this. They have authority to regulate how the states organize and conduct federal elections. Now, these laws, I don't think necessarily have to apply if you're just doing a statewide election, for a county or for something like that. But if this person is going to go to D.C. and become part of the federal government, the Congress of the United States, they clearly have the authority to do something about this, and people are clamoring for it. And I think well, let's just read what Grassley says first, and then we can speculate as to why. This is from the Persistence, putting this out, who is Scott Pressler. Scott Pressler says, Senator Chuck Grassley will not support the SAVE Act, despite the fact that the U.S. Constitution clearly states that Congress may regulate elections. Senator Grassley wrote, quote, I do not believe that Iowa and other states need politicians in Washington, D.C. dictating and controlling how states run their elections. This was written yesterday, January 20th, and then you see the highlighted portion right there. He says... a little more context. He says, I agree with you that it is important to make sure our country's elections occur without fraud. As a senator, I have opposed partisan efforts in D.C. to federalize elections in order to undermine election integrity, such as through the so-called For the People Act and the Freedom to Vote Act, which both passed the House of Representatives. However, when these bills came before the full Senate, they failed to receive 60 votes needed to invoke cloture, and it did not pass in the Senate. And then he says, I do not believe that Iowa and other states need the feds interfering in the elections. He says, I also support requiring voter ID because I believe that every fraudulent vote dilutes the votes of legitimate voters. However, Article 1 and 2 of the U.S. Constitution leave states the primary responsibility for creating and enacting election laws. But it doesn't, that if they're primary, that doesn't mean that that's the only way to do this. And this is a big deal because, and if I'm President Trump, I'm furious about this, because if the midterms do not come out in Trump's favor, in the Republicans' favor, then Donald Trump's going to be impeached. And if for some reason you lose the Senate, I know you have to get 75% or 2/3 of the Senate to vote to convict, but his whole presidency is going to be over, essentially, in a lot of ways. But it won't be much different than it has been for the first year because Congress hasn't done anything anyway, Eric. I mean, if we're really honest about it, everything's just been executive orders, and they're not really codifying any of his stuff. I mean, you had the big, beautiful bill, but in terms of election integrity, they got to do it, and they don't want to end the filibuster. So this is a huge problem, and I want to speculate real quick as to why. It could just be the money, like we said. Why are we doing stupid things, and why are we not doing obvious things? It could be that. But I'm sorry, I just found myself looking. I don't know how old Senator Chuck Grassley is.
Old.
He's like what, almost 90?
Old.
He looks like he's 90.
He talks like he's 190.
He's in his 80s. He's been there a long time.
Yeah.
And I think what we have here is and this is a growing thing, and I hate it because I've been chastised before with people online. You don't need to just blame this all on the boomers. You need to respect your elders. Look, I'm not blaming it all on them, although I've seen, in my days in Little Rock, I've seen a lot of boomers come up with every excuse they possibly can in a committee room not to do what they told the voters they would do, not to do the most obvious thing, and you don't see that. You're not seeing that as much with the up and coming generation because I think they realized that you have to have men with chests that make tough decisions and speak truth to power. And I think the boomer generation, when it comes to those who serve in government, have taken the easy way almost every single time. So I just did what I said I didn't want to do, but. Then on the other side, you also have this problem with technology and a lack of information, a lack of an imagination. Like, I think somebody like Chuck Grassley can't fathom how easy, technology has always made these people's lives better. And the idea that this technology that we're now facing, which, is in the wrong hands, is the technology to enslave ourselves while us thinking that we're free. I just think somebody as old as Chuck Grassley, it's like George H.W. Bush not knowing about the scanner, in the grocery store and didn't know how people were buying their groceries. And then he lost to Bill Clinton because of that. And read my lips, no new taxes. Anyway, take it away, Eric Haynes. What do you think?
Bless his heart, he's been a senator for longer than we've been alive. He's been in Congress for 50 years. And if you hear him talk, even for just a couple of minutes, it's just tough to get through, and bless his heart, he's 92 years old.
He is 92. We just looked it up.
We've seen this before. We saw it with Dianne Feinstein. We've seen it with lots of other senators that just cannot throw in the towel. And part of me gets it because they want to just keep serving, but this is tough because Yeah, I don't want to be crass about him personally, or he's done a lot of great things in his time in the Senate and been, a great conservative. But yeah, it's just, you see things like this and you're like, you're just taking the path of least resistance because you're 92 and you don't want to fight.
Mm-hmm.
But there's plenty of other young senators that want to fight about everything. And I'm not saying that's the answer either. We're constantly fighting this, pendulum of back and forth, and we'd just love for once to see balance and objectivity in the Senate and in the House, but we're not going to get that. I mean, when you look at the House and the Senate, it's very, very hard to find balance, objective, people that serve anymore.
Yeah.
Because there's so many of them that are just absolutely crazy.
Chuck Grassley was
Not saying that
first
Chuck
got to
Grassley's crazy.
Chuck Grassley first got to Congress in 1981. That is 45 years. Hang on, did I do the math right? He's been in Congress for 45 years.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
And I will ask somebody like Chuck Grassley, and I'm not saying the guy's never done good things. I'm sure he has. I'm pretty sure there's stuff in the last year he spoke out against that I was like, yeah, way to go. But at 92 years old, I have no desire to ever go into public office. But if I did, and I am 92 and I'm still like, I got to have this job, and I'm not going back to Iowa to be with my grandkids or hopefully my great-grandkids at that point, something's wrong. Something's wrong there. Something's wrong when Mitch McConnell is willing to literally
great example.
Embarrass himself and stroke out in front of everybody, literally emasculating who he is as a man. Why didn't he go back to Kentucky 10, 15 years ago and live a life of luxury with his family, assuming he has kids and grandkids? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. But that's what I don't understand.
And these guys
at 92 years old, you have no business. You have no business. I don't know. What is Trump, 80?
And these folks will never pass legislation. I think he's 76, something like that. These guys will never pass legislation for term limits either. It's been talked about for decades.
Yeah.
I've heard term limits for decades, but it never passes, and these guys just stay in there for years and years and years, not just past their prime, but I mean, we saw it really, really badly for the last 4 years in the president office.
Yeah, and let me, because I'm going to be accused of ageism or something. It's not that I'm saying that a 92-year-old, because there are very sharp 92-year-olds. Again, Trump is 79. That you're not capable of doing the job. My question is more of at what point how much is enough? And I guess that to me is the problem of, is your identity, do you believe that if you're not a senator, you're nobody? Your identity is so tied up in this job. I just think that's a big problem. I think that's the core of the issue.
I see this in healthcare all the time, where people at different age levels depending on how they've lived their lives, between the ages of 60 and 92, like Senator Grassley, they start to lose their fastball at different times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in a situation like this with a United States senator, there needs to be some sort of a guardrails to not allow what happened to President Biden, which was that he served for a lot of years pretty effectively as a state senator. Whether I agreed with his politics or not, I mean, you could go back and watch a lot of videos where he was on fire for a lot of things, passed a lot of legislation, and then he gets older and older and older, and
he's talking about his leg hairs in the swimming pool and I don't know, really weird stuff.
Corn pop and just
I'm gonna put y'all back in chains.
Just the craziest things that he said. And then here's what's really funny. It gets passed off as like, well, just Uncle Joe, that's just part of it. That's just him. He's getting old. So he starts to pacify that type of a decline of somebody that actually really needs to be stepping up and doing some important things, not just sending letters like this to whoever, to the president and taking the path of least resistance. This is just
Well, and it's really sad, too, because you got somebody with
weakness.
45 years of experience, but you're not seeing the biggest elephant in the room. We're talking about saving the country.
Right.
We're talking about saving the country because our elections are not secure, and this guy is not seeing that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just literally our entire existence, way of life is under threat. Chip Roy, Congressman Chip Roy responded to this news, saying Iowa politicians in D.C. demand all Americans uphold federal regs and pour ethanol in their gas tanks, but we can't clarify election law to demand proof of citizenship. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
I went out of my way today. We're about to get a giant winter storm here in Arkansas in the next couple of days, and
it's coming.
I think we're mostly going to get a lot of snow. But there's also a chance for freezing rain. And so I went around to fill up the gas tanks with ethanol-free gas for the generators in case we need it. You know, the reason I have to go search for an ethanol-free pump is because of Iowa. I mean, that's why.
Yeah.
It's because of those corn subsidies. The reason catfish prices are so high because a lot of farmers filled in their ponds because they make more money growing corn off of the government instead of delicious catfish. So, I mean,
Man, I'm hungry.
yeah, it's like that guy from New York. The rent is too
not
high.
it's not even
Catfish
5 yet.
prices. And let's not even talk about brisket prices, folks. Let's not even talk about brisket prices. That is criminal highway robbery, and it's not the cattle farmer's fault. It's the meat packer's fault. It's the middleman's fault. And you know what? There's a lot of senators on the Ag Committee, one of our own here in Arkansas, who I think listen more to the meat packers than they do the actual cattle farmers. But that is a story for
I buy
another
my
day.
beef local, so I'm all right there.
Well, that's good. That's good. And then we have this a guy named Shiloh Marks. Who is this guy? Cleaning California voter rolls. So this guy is in the sphere of trying to expose that our elections are at the bare minimum not trustworthy. Senator Chuck Grassley won re-election by 148,000 votes in 2022. Iowa processed 160,000 new valid voter registration applications between 2020 and 2022. He says these voter registration applications did not require proof of citizenship.
Yeah.
So is he kind of getting at what we've been said a lot of times? Maybe, just maybe, this whole voter integrity thing, or this whole voter fraud thing, doesn't just benefit Democrats. Could it possibly maybe benefit Republicans in some instances, especially in primaries? Is that what he's trying to say?
I just wish that in times like this, that young challengers would be able to get up enough steam to be a primary contender. We've seen it happen a few times before, but it was always really, like random, and it would hit and be like, wow, blank lost. Eric Cantor, remember? And then there was a few others that I can think of specifically that I was just like, oh,
yeah,
wouldn't have predicted him to lose in a primary, but we need more of that.
I wonder how much money Eric Cantor. Was it Massey that beat? Who was it that beat Eric Cantor? It wasn't Massey because he's not from Tennessee. It's not Kentucky. I can't remember that guy.
I can't remember either.
I don't ever even hear him I don't even hear about that guy anymore.
No.
Hang on, real quick before we're going. I have got to. I got to know.
What have I done?
Who beat Eric Cantor? Because I have a question about that. Who beat Eric Cantor? Dave Bratt. Yeah, Dave Bratt. That's who it was. A guy named Dave Bratt. Where's Dave Bratt now? Is he still a congressman? I don't even know.
I mean, Cantor was the House Minority Leader at the time. That was what was even more weird.
American politician, academic who served in the U.S. House of Representatives for Virginia's 7th District from, come on, don't leave me hanging, from 2014 to 2019. So he's out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he beat Cantor. Here's the question.
Oh, look. Now look who's in.
Who's in now?
Abigail Spanberger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the CIA, and now she's the governor of Virginia.
Which kind of makes sense. It's Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it was just one of those things that to get back to my point of we just need good young folks to take out the
What did you say? Oh no, take them out. Hey,
mean it
seriously,
like that.
my question though is, how much money did Eric Cantor go on to make when he lost? Did he make more money or less money? That's my question. And we all know the answer's more.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe Eric Cantor wanted to lose.
I'm just excited for the investigation
I don't
into
trust any of these
Ilhan
people.
Omar, which Trump also talked about yesterday,
Yep.
which was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's kind of weird. She came into Congress making $65,000, and 2 years later, she's worth $30 million. How'd that happen? And he asked the question to the press gaggle, like, how'd that happen? I don't know. I'm pretty sure she's crooked.
Maybe it's because when she married her brother,
Yeah, right.
she got smarter financially. Here's the deal.
Can we as a society please call a spade, too, on that stuff? It's just like...
She married her brother, and that's really gross. But do you know that in Muslim cultures and everything, it's like,
oh no,
it's kind of it's okay to marry your cousin, right? Your first cousin. So in Great Britain now, they're now saying that it's okay. Like the government of the UK, they're now saying that it's it's not a bad thing to marry your cousin.
British people for British people, or because Britain has been so invaded by...
Because they've been invaded, yeah.
Okay.
For the Muslim population. No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it goes...
Can you imagine pandering to the degree of that?
Bad.
You're willing to pander to this base of potential voters?
We're
like,
literally willing to...
Hey, you know what I'm going to get in? I'm going to get in cousin hookups.
Yeah, we're willing... Their political correctness is so bad to just this one minority group that they're willing for children to be born with genetic defects just to cater.
Yeah.
I mean, you let that go in a couple generations and you know what you get.
Yeah.
You don't get the cream of the crop.
You thought us saying pray anywhere you want to at any time was great. Wait till I get in the cousin thing.
You thought the IQs on average were bad before. Oh, God. All right. They're going to have real problems. They already got real problems, but it's not good. It's not good at all. All right, let me see this. All right, in other news, this is kind of an interesting story if it's true. Blue Lives Matter over on X, which is owned by the 1776 Project. They're now, and I think this is a hallmark of a civil war, by the way, in Minneapolis or in these blue cities. I really do. If you think about it factionally, if you don't think about it with grays and blues, organize it on a field somewhere.
Okay.
And actually, by the way, I watched the Civil War enactment one time as a kid. My dad took me.
I've done that too.
It was out at Craighead Forest.
Oh, okay.
They did it the Yankees came out of the woods and then they had a hanging afterwards.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it was awesome. It was awesome.
That's cool.
Anyway, the Confederates won the battle that day. Just saying. I'm just saying.
Oh, really? Here in Arkansas?
The home team won that day during that Civil War reenactment. Anyway.
It's like every time I go to Dixie Stampede, I'm like, maybe this time.
But it's not.
Be real.
It's not like, the traditional 1860s Civil War. This is going to be different. It's going to express itself in a different way. And I think this is one of those expressions, and I'll tell you why. We're going to read this. They write, we're not saying that Blue Lives Matter was behind feeding false information to far-left anti-ICE protesters. We're not saying that we had teams comprised of hundreds of off-duty cops and veterans volunteer to run decoy operations so far-left activists thought they were conducting ICE raids. We're not saying that they were, in fact, that they were just driving around in what appeared to be unmarked vehicles with tinted windows, drinking coffee, and listening to Guns N' Roses, being chased down and surrounded by protesters. What we are saying is if that did happen, it sure worked remarkably well in 9 different states, allowing actual raids to successfully take place unimpeded, helping support the capture of hundreds of criminals. Combat veterans, off-duty officers, and patriotic Americans have had enough of the radical left and are being activated across the country to back our law enforcement. And they're smarter, more skilled, more driven, better trained than the left, and actually enjoy sitting in a deer stand for days on end just waiting. I think it's obvious. I don't think I have to explain how this is kind of an expression of a potential second civil war when you have civilians organizing themselves to go against the left. Now, with something like this, obviously there's the potential for danger. There's the potential that this breaks out into some sort of hot conflict when you're doing this, when you're running ops like this. But I mean, what are you going to do? You can't stop them. And I mean, it is what it is. There's different ways to support law enforcement than just, putting those stickers on your car.
Yeah,
so
and the cults are organized and they're paid. Like, no, you can't stop them. You definitely can't.
Yeah.
But you can drive in circles and play ice cream truck music as you drive around in circles with them following you.
Yeah.
Blowing their
honestly,
whistles and doing all that stuff.
If I ever
that bait
did
and
that,
switch stuff is cool.
It is. But if I ever did that, like if I was like, hey, let's go to, let's go and pretend that we're ICE in an unmarked vehicle and drive around, dude, I would want to trigger those. I would want to trigger the Karens in the awful so bad.
Yeah.
Like, I would like, I don't know, I'd dress up in like a sombrero and play mariachi music out the window or something.
Awful.
Just so it'd be like cultural appropriation. Like, you actually really appreciate their culture.
But on a serious note too. There's that video that went super viral yesterday of the ICE agent pulling up to the car and the ladies, and he's like, "You guys know what you're doing, right? Like, we're here to arrest a child sex predator."
I saw that.
And she's like, "Oh no, we're the press," and he's like, "No, this car right here has been following us and honking us, trying to impede our investigation. And this is who you're protecting, a child sex predator." Like,
it's sick.
That's who you're protecting. And again, getting back to my point from, I think, last week, where they think that every person that ICE is after is some hardworking, lady with 3 kids who's just trying to, work 2 jobs to support her family. That's not that's not what's happening. But it doesn't matter. That does not fit their narrative.
All right, last night on Newsmax, Christy Nome said this.
A pastor really did a remarkable thing there, trying to protect his parishioners.
And even the parishioners, I imagine, have felt and feel intimidated. And
they did, and there's going to be arrests in the next several hours, Greta. There will be arrests tied to that, and people will be brought to justice for how they violated the law in that situation.
All right, so people are going to be brought to justice, she said, in the next several hours. Aaron McIntyre saying, okay, where are they? Because it's been a day now. It'll be 24 hours later this evening. But it is good news that they are at least saying, hey, look, we're going to go arrest these people.
Yeah.
Here's this, let's see, this crazy person. Where did it go? Oh, did I miss it already? Are we out of time? All right, we've got 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
When I saw that picture of that little young child, like, pouring his face into his dad's shoulder because he was scared. When idiots like this broke into his church.
Listen to this guy. He's going to jail.
And I'm not scared of that. There's no base for these charges. I did not block them from, their service. All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters.
He says, I did not block their worship service. And that's like the best video on the internet right now, for sure. All right, last.
You can hear the worship music playing in the background. They're trying to at least play music to drown out a little bit of this nonsense. And this guy just says, no.
All right, so here's our last clip for today. Congratulations to Vice President J.D. Vance. His wife, Usha, is expecting their 4th child. Is that right? Is that their 4th child? Their fourth child. So typically...
Welcome to the team.
Typically, people announce a pregnancy, after you get past that first trimester, right? Mm-hmm. So some people have decided to do the math. They're just curious, like, well, when was the life actually
date of
created?
Conception.
When was the date of conception? People are trying to figure that out, and some people believe that it was this date, the date where J.D. Vance did the fat J.D. Vance meme for Halloween and put on the wig. And so if that is true, it means that Vice President J.D. Vance had a happy Halloween. I think it's safe to say he had a happy Halloween.
Trick or treat, Usha, and I'm pretty sure she chose treat.
Okay. All right, that's all the time that we have for this edition.
Great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eric Haynes. We'll be back here tomorrow. God bless everybody out there watching. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all the things for the Rumble, X, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll see you tomorrow.